My name is Napoleon Hill, and what I'm about to share with you today is the lesson I was afraid to teach, because it doesn't just challenge your beliefs about success, it unravels them. It is not found in my published works, it is not recorded in my lectures, and yet, it may be the most important truth I have discovered in my lifetime of studying success. You see, there is a shadow side to achievement that no one speaks of, a price that is paid silently, painfully, often without knowing. And I have witnessed it destroy men who, by all outward measures, had reached the pinnacle of success. I have seen titans of industry gain the world, yet lose themselves in the process. I have watched brilliant minds achieve their every goal, only to wonder why the joy never came. I have observed men of great wealth surrounded by empty chairs at dinner tables meant for families. This is the hidden cost of chasing success, the dark side of ambition that I have, until now, been hesitant to address. But today, I must speak of it, because what good is wealth without wholeness? What value is achievement without alignment? What purpose does power serve if your very identity becomes fractured in its pursuit? I ask you to listen carefully, not as someone seeking a quick path to riches, but as a soul seeking to understand the full truth about the journey ahead. Because while desire may be the starting point of all achievement, wisdom is knowing what that achievement might cost you, and discernment is deciding what price you are willing to pay. If you are still with me, if you are brave enough to face this shadow, then let us begin, because the most dangerous trap isn't failure. It's a hollow success that leaves you wondering, is this all there is? In my years studying the science of success, I have observed a pattern so consistent, so predictable that it cannot be ignored. The very qualities that drive men toward extraordinary achievement are often the same qualities that drive them toward extraordinary emptiness. Let me explain. The burning desire I have so often preached, that white-hot obsession with a single outcome, is indeed the starting point of all material success. But there is a dark twin to this principle, a shadow principle I call the divided self. It emerges when ambition becomes disconnected from purpose, when the chase becomes more important than the reason for running, when the goal overshadows the man himself. You see, the mind cannot forever sustain a division between what you do and who you are, between the mask you wear to achieve and the face beneath it, between the life you're building and the life you're actually living. This division, this fracture of identity, is the first hidden cost of success. I have sat across from men worth millions who could no longer recognize themselves in the mirror. Men who had changed so completely in pursuit of their aims that they had become strangers to themselves. One such man was a steel magnate I interviewed in 1928. He had built an empire through sheer force of will. His name was known across the nation. His wealth was beyond counting. Yet when I asked him about his greatest achievement, he fell silent, and then he said something I have never forgotten. Hill, I have spent 30 years becoming someone I don't recognize, to impress people I don't like, to acquire things that don't matter. That is the divided self in its final form. A man who has climbed to the top of the mountain only to discover he left himself at the bottom. You see, success without self-knowledge is always hollow. Achievement without alignment always rings empty in the end. And this is what most of my contemporaries fail to teach. They speak only of acquisition, never of integration. They preach desire but not discernment. They demand sacrifice, without warning what might be lost. And so today, I wish to correct this oversight, to speak not just of how to achieve success, but how to achieve it without losing yourself in the process. Because the real mastery is not in building fortunes. It is in building a life of both external achievement and internal coherence, where who you are aligns perfectly with what you do, where your work is an expression of your truth, not an escape from it, where success serves your wholeness rather than diminishing it. This is the higher teaching, the more difficult path, the road less traveled. But it is the only road that leads to success without regret, the only path that allows achievement without emptiness, the only way to build a fortune without losing your soul. Let me share with you what I observed in the lives of truly integrated men, men who achieved greatly yet remained whole. For 20 years, I studied the most successful individuals of my generation. I sat with Ford and Edison, with Rockefeller and Carnegie, and I discovered a crucial difference between those who found only wealth and those who found both wealth and fulfillment. This difference was not in their methods, but in their relationship to success itself. Consider Thomas Edison. Here was a man who failed thousands of times in his pursuit of the electric light. A man who worked tirelessly, often through the night, pursuing his vision. By all accounts, he exhibited the burning desire I have long championed. But there was something more to Edison that set him apart. When I asked him about his persistence through those many failures, he said, "I never once worked a day in my life. It was all play." You see, Edison's work was not separate from his identity. It was an expression of it. He did not divide himself between the man who desired success and the man who lived life. They were one and the same. His relationship to achievement was not one of grasping, but of expressing, not of becoming something different, but of being more fully himself. And this distinction is vital. The man who chases success as if it will make him whole will always feel hollow when he catches it. But the man who pursues achievement as an expression of his wholeness will find fulfillment at every step of the journey. Now contrast this with another magnate I interviewed, a man whose name I shall keep private, but whose fortune was among the largest in America. He built his empire through sheer force of will, working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. He sacrificed everything on the altar of achievement: his health, his relationships, his peace of mind. And when success came, as it inevitably does to such determined men, it brought no joy, because he had trained himself to live only for the chase, never for the catching. When I asked him what drove him to continue accumulating wealth beyond any possible need, he answered, "The truth, Hill? I don't know how to stop. I don't know who I would be if I did." That is the tragedy of the divided self. A man so identified with his pursuit that he has forgotten what he was pursuing it for. A man who cannot rest because he fears what silence might reveal. A man who cannot slow down because the momentum of achievement is the only thing holding his fractured identity together. Do you see the difference? Edison created from wholeness. The other man created to escape his emptiness. And while both found success, only one found satisfaction. Ask yourself and answer with brutal honesty. Are you pursuing success to express your greatness or to escape your emptiness? The question then is not whether you can achieve. I have proven beyond doubt that any man with sufficient desire and persistence can rise to great heights. The question is, from what inner place will you pursue your achievements? From division or from wholeness? From expressing your true nature or from escaping it? This is the higher lesson of success, and it is one that few are brave enough to consider. Now, let me speak of another cost that shadows achievement. One that I have observed in even the wealthiest of men. I call it the poverty of connection. You see, success, especially rapid success, has a way of isolating a man, of placing him in a category apart, of surrounding him with those who want something from him rather than those who simply want him. And this isolation can become the heaviest burden of achievement. I remember sitting with Henry Ford in his office late one evening. The factory had long since emptied. The world outside had gone dark. And in a moment of rare vulnerability, this titan of industry confessed, "Hill, do you know what it's like to wonder if anyone would care about you without your name, without your wealth, without what you can provide?" This was a man who could buy anything, who could summon presidents with a phone call, who had changed the very fabric of American life with his innovation. Yet he hungered for something his wealth could not secure: authentic human connection, the kind that exists without agenda, the kind that sees past achievement to the man beneath, the kind that most of us take for granted until it's gone. You see, as a man rises, the nature of his relationships changes. People begin to respond not to who he is, but to what he represents, not to his character, but to his position. And unless he is very careful, unless he cultivates connections rooted in something deeper than his achievements, he will find himself surrounded yet alone, admired yet unknown, envied yet unseen. This is the poverty of connection. and I have witnessed it drain the joy from fortunes that would astound you. Carnegie once told me, "The most valuable asset a man can have is not in his bank account. It is in the handful of people who would remain if that account were emptied overnight." Wisdom from a man who learned it the hard way. So hear me now. As you pursue your ambitions, as you apply the principles I have taught, be vigilant about who walks beside you. Guard your inner circle as you would guard your greatest treasure. Fill it not with those who feed your ego, but with those who nourish your soul. Not with those who reflect your status, but with those who reflect your values. Because success that costs you authentic connection is always a poor bargain in the final accounting. I have seen men trade their most meaningful relationships for achievements that, in the end, felt meaningless without someone to share them with. I have watched as their pursuit of more left them with less of what truly matters. And I have observed how the most satisfied among the successful were not those with the greatest fortunes, but those with the deepest connections. Remember this when ambition calls you to sacrifice another dinner with your family. When the drive for more tempts you to become less present with those who love you. When achievement promises a reward that cannot be shared. Because the wealthiest man I ever met was not the one with the most zeros in his account. It was the one who, at the end of his life, was rich in the only currency that matters on our deathbed. The love he had given and received. The lives he had touched with his presence, not just his productivity. The moments of genuine connection that no amount of success can substitute for. This too is part of the hidden cost of chasing success, and it is one that cannot be repaid once the debt comes due. There is a third shadow that follows achievement, a price paid not in identity or connection, but in vitality itself. I call it the death of joy, and it is perhaps the most insidious cost of all. You see, in the pursuit of success, many men develop a dangerous habit. They postpone living until their goals are reached. When I make my first million, when I achieve my position, when I secure my future, then they promise themselves they will finally live. But here is what I have observed time and again. The man who cannot find joy in the striving will rarely find it in the achieving. The man who postpones living until some future victory has usually forgotten how to live by the time it arrives. Have you felt this emptiness, this strange hollowness that comes when the very thing you chased for years finally arrives in your hands, yet leaves your heart untouched? The capacity for joy, for wonder, for play, for presence is like any muscle. Neglect it long enough and it atrophies. Train it to remain dormant, and dormant it will stay, even when success finally grants permission to awaken it. I sat once with a man who had built the largest department store chain in the Midwest. He had worked tirelessly for 30 years, promising himself that when he reached a certain milestone, he would finally enjoy the fruits of his labor, travel the world, pursue his passions, reconnect with simple pleasures. When that day came, when he sold his business for a fortune that would support 10 lifetimes, he found himself strangely unable to enjoy it. "It's the damnedest thing, Hill," he told me. "I've gained the freedom to do anything, and discovered I've forgotten how to do nothing." This is the death of joy. The slow, nearly imperceptible sacrifice of presence on the altar of future reward. And it is a price too steep for any achievement to justify. Now understand this. I am not suggesting that success requires joylessness. That achievement demands misery. That ambition must cost you your capacity for wonder. Quite the opposite. The most effective men I studied were those who maintained their connection to joy throughout their journey, who worked with intensity but lived with presence, who understood that success is not a destination that justifies a joyless journey, but a journey that is valuable precisely because it can be infused with joy at every step. Edison did not delay joy until his inventions were complete. He found it in the very act of creating them. Ford did not postpone life until his fortune was secured. He lived fully even while building it. These men understood what so many forget, that success is not life's purpose. It is merely one of life's expressions. And when it becomes the sole focus, when achievement becomes so serious that wonder dies, the cost is paid not just in happiness, but in effectiveness itself, because joy is not separate from achievement. It is fuel for it, the capacity to find pleasure in your work, to remain in wonder at the process, to stay connected to the passion that sparked your journey. This is what sustains a man through the inevitable challenges of ambition. So I urge you now, do not fall for the lie that success requires the death of joy. Do not accept the false bargain that achievement demands misery now for happiness later. Do not postpone living until some future victory validates your right to live. Instead, guard your capacity for wonder as you would guard your most precious resource. Train your mind to find satisfaction in the striving, not just the attaining. Practice presence even as you pursue your goals. Because the true mastery is not in sacrificing joy for success, but in finding success through joy, in building achievement around a life well lived, rather than delaying life for achievement. This is the higher path, the more sustainable way, the road that leads not just to wealth, but to wealth worth having. Now that I have shown you the hidden costs, let me show you the way through them. For there is a path to success that does not demand the sacrifice of self, that does not require the poverty of connection, that refuses the death of joy. I call it aligned achievement. And it begins with a radical idea that success is not something you chase. It is something you embody, not a distant shore to reach through struggle, but a way of being here and now that naturally produces remarkable results. This philosophy differs from what many teach. It does not ask what you want to have or what you need to do, but who you must become. And becoming is not about addition, but alignment. Not about changing yourself, but revealing yourself. Not about division, but integration. Let me make this practical with steps any man or woman can apply, steps that will help you achieve without the hidden costs I've described. First, define success from the inside out. Most define success by external measures: money, status, power, recognition. And these have their place. But aligned achievement begins by defining success internally. What kind of man do you wish to be, regardless of what you attain? What qualities do you wish to embody? What values will guide your journey? Answer these questions first, before setting a single material goal. Write them down. Make them your primary measure. Because a man who succeeds by his internal definition can never fail by external measures. But a man who succeeds by external measures alone often fails by the internal ones that truly matter. When I interviewed Andrew Carnegie about his remarkable rise, he surprised me by saying, "Hill, I decided as a young man the kind of character I wanted to build. The fortune was simply evidence that I had built it. His success flowed from who he was, not from what he chased." And this made all the difference in how he experienced his achievement. Second, practice unified action. This is the antidote to the divided self. Each day, ask, does this action express my whole being or just my ambition? Am I moving toward my goals in a way that honors all of who I am? Does this choice integrate my life or fragment it further? The most satisfied achievers I studied were those who refused to compartmentalize, who brought their full humanity to their work, who aligned their goals with their deeper values. They did not become someone else to succeed. They became more fully themselves. And in doing so, they avoided the hollow victory of the divided self. Third, build success through connection. To avoid the poverty of connection, you must view relationships not as accessories to achievement, but as essential to it. The quality of your connections will determine the quality of your success. The depth of your relationships will shape the depth of your satisfaction. The authenticity of your interactions will influence the authenticity of your achievements. This requires conscious choice. Choose to work with those who share your values, not just your ambitions. Build teams based on character, not just competence. Measure your progress not just in dollars, but in the strength of your relationships. Carnegie once told me his greatest achievement was not his fortune, but the team he built to create it. Men whose loyalty was to each other, not just to profit. Men who grew together, not just grew wealthy together. This is success that enriches rather than impoverishes your connections. Fourth, infuse your journey with wonder. To prevent the death of joy, you must deliberately cultivate your capacity for presence. This means finding beauty in the process, not just the outcome. Celebrating small victories, not just final destinations. Remaining curious about your work, not just driven by it. Edison showed me his notebooks once, thousands of failed experiments on his path to the light bulb. And in the margins were jokes, observations, moments of delight. I refused, he told me, to let the seriousness of my purpose rob me of the joy of my work. This is mastery, to pursue achievement with disciplined intensity, while maintaining childlike wonder at the journey itself. Fifth and finally, practice cyclical achievement. The seasons teach us wisdom that most men of ambition ignore. After the harvest comes winter's stillness. After the bloom comes the necessary dormancy. After expansion must come integration. Nature does not grow continuously. It pulses between flourishing and replenishing, between doing and being, between striving and savoring. Yet most men approach success linearly, always pushing, always climbing, always striving. Like a farmer who plants without rest, they soon exhaust the very soil of their soul, never pausing to integrate what they've gained, never stopping to absorb what they've learned, never resting to replenish what they've spent. This linear approach inevitably leads to burnout, emptiness, and the hidden costs I've described. The alternative is cyclical achievement, periods of intense focus followed by genuine renewal. Ambitious action balanced with reflective stillness, outward achievement complemented by inward growth. This rhythm, this pulse between doing and being, is what allows success to become sustainable, what enables achievement to serve your wholeness rather than diminish it. One of the wisest men I interviewed built his fortune in cycles. 6 months of relentless focus on business. 6 weeks of complete withdrawal to study, reflect, and reconnect with himself. The withdrawals, he told me, are when I remember why I'm working, when I reconnect with who I am beyond what I do, when I ensure my success serves my life rather than replaces it. This man avoided all 3 hidden costs I've described. His self remained integrated. His connection stayed nourished. His joy continued to flourish, not despite his achievements, but alongside them. This, then, is aligned achievement, success that expresses rather than fragments your identity, success that deepens rather than depletes your connections, success that enhances rather than diminishes your joy. It is not the easy path. It demands more awareness than blind ambition, more wisdom than raw desire, more discernment than pure drive. But it is the only path to success worth having, the only road to achievement without regret, the only way to build a fortune that enriches your humanity rather than impoverishing it. Now let me warn you of the pitfalls that await, the forces that will pull you away from aligned achievement and toward the hidden costs I've described. For the path is clear, but the walking is not easy. First among these dangers is what I call comparison blindness. In your pursuit of success, you will naturally look to others who have achieved what you desire. You will study their methods, mirror their habits, emulate their approaches. This is wise. But beware, for while you can see their achievements clearly, you cannot see their costs. You witness their public victories, but not their private defeats. You observe their material gains, but not their internal losses. And in this partial vision lies great danger. For you may find yourself thinking, if he sacrificed his health to build his empire, I should do the same. If she neglected her relationships to climb the ladder, that's what success requires. If they push through exhaustion and emptiness, that must be the price of achievement. This is comparison blindness. Accepting someone else's bargain without knowing the full terms, emulating someone else's path without seeing where it truly led them. I have interviewed men whose names you would recognize instantly, whose fortunes you would envy, who confessed to me privately that the cost had been too high. that they would trade half their wealth to recover what they had lost along the way. Yet their public image suggested nothing but triumph. So I urge you, do not be blinded by partial comparisons. Do not assume that all success requires the same sacrifice. Do not accept that achievement must cost you what it has cost others. There is always another way, a path unique to you, a form of success that honors rather than diminishes your wholeness. The second danger is momentum without meaning. Success, once it begins, creates its own momentum. Opportunity builds upon opportunity. Achievement leads to greater achievement. The wheel turns faster and faster, and in this acceleration lies a subtle trap. The momentum itself becomes the purpose. The means becomes the end. The vehicle becomes the destination. I watched this happen to a brilliant industrialist, a man who built a manufacturing empire from nothing. Each success led to new opportunities, each victory to greater challenges. Until one day, exhausted and confused, he confessed, "Hill, I've been running so fast for so long, I've forgotten what I'm running toward. The momentum carries me now, not my meaning." This is the danger of achievement without regular reflection, of action without reconnection to purpose, of speed without direction. To avoid this trap, you must build into your life regular periods of stillness, times when you step off the wheel, moments when you ask not, "What's next?" but "What matters?" Days when you measure not your progress, but your alignment. These pauses are not indulgences. They are necessities, not distractions from success, but essential to it. For a man who has forgotten his why will eventually lose his will, and all the momentum in the world cannot compensate for meaning lost along the way. The final danger I must warn you about is the arrival fallacy. This is the belief that when you reach your goal, when you make your million, build your business, achieve your status, then you will feel complete, satisfied, arrived. This belief is so persistent, so alluring, and so completely false. Achievement does not create fulfillment. It reveals it. It does not generate wholeness. It expresses it. The man who believes otherwise will chase horizon after horizon, always convinced that the next achievement will finally bring the peace that the last one didn't, always pushing fulfillment into some future that never arrives. I sat with a man once who had amassed enough wealth to last 10 lifetimes. When I asked what drove him to continue accumulating more, he said, "I thought each milestone would be the one that finally made me feel successful. But the feeling never came. So I set a new goal, convinced that was the one that would do it." This is the arrival fallacy at work, the perpetual postponement of fulfillment, the endless deferral of enough. The antidote is simple but profound. Fulfillment must be practiced, not pursued. Satisfaction must be embodied, not achieved. Enough must be decided, not discovered. You must choose consciously when you have reached your sufficiency. You must practice gratitude not as a platitude, but as a state of being. You must learn to savor what you have, even as you strive for more. If you chase the world's definition of success, do not be surprised when it gives you the world's emptiness. Because if you cannot be satisfied with 1,000,000, you will not be satisfied with 10. If you cannot find peace in your current achievement, no future achievement will provide it. If you cannot recognize enough, you will never experience it. This too is part of aligned achievement. Not just the ability to attain, but the wisdom to appreciate. Not just the power to acquire, but the discernment to savor. These then are the dangers: comparison that blinds you to the true cost, momentum that disconnects you from meaning, arrival that forever remains on the horizon. Guard against them with awareness, counter them with reflection, overcome them with wisdom, and your path to success will remain aligned with your wholeness, your achievements expressions of your humanity, rather than substitutes for it. Let me restate the essential truth. Because repetition is how wisdom moves from the mind to the bones. Success is not something you chase at the expense of yourself. It is something you express from the fullness of yourself. Achievement is not a destination that justifies a fragmented journey. It is a journey that draws its value from your integration along the way. Wealth is not compensation for what you sacrifice. It is the natural outcome of what you cultivate. This is the higher teaching of success, the more complete truth, the wisdom beyond the formula, and it requires that you understand. Your identity is not something you compromise for achievement. It is the very foundation from which lasting achievement grows. Your connections are not accessories to success. They are essential to it. Your joy is not something you postpone until victory. It is the energy that makes victory possible. These are not soft principles for those who lack ambition. They are sophisticated truths for those who seek sustainable success. Not success that burns bright and fast, but success that grows deep and endures. I have seen men build fortunes without fragmenting themselves. I have watched empires rise without relationships falling. I have observed great achievements created with wonder rather than at the cost of it. It is possible. It is practical. It is the only form of success truly worth pursuing. But it requires more than desire and persistence. It demands awareness, discernment, wisdom. The courage to define success for yourself when the world would define it for you. The strength to move at your own pace when the crowd would hurry you. The conviction to build achievement around your life rather than sacrificing your life for achievement. This is your challenge, your opportunity, your invitation. Not merely to succeed, but to succeed in a way that enriches rather than diminishes your humanity. Not just to achieve, but to achieve in alignment with who you truly are. Not simply to rise, but to rise without falling prey to the hidden costs that claim so many. This is success of the highest kind. Not just fortune, but legacy. Not just ambition, but soul. And it begins not with what you do, but with who you choose to be while doing it. I have shown you the hidden costs of chasing success. I have revealed the path of aligned achievement. I have warned you of the dangers along the way. Have you been listening with your mind or with your soul? For the mind seeks only methods, while the soul recognizes truth. Now I ask you, what kind of success will you pursue? What price are you willing to pay? What bargain will you make with your one precious life? These are not questions to answer lightly. They are not decisions to make in haste. They are choices that will shape not just your achievements, but your experience of them. And so I urge you now, define success for yourself before the world defines it for you. Draw the line of enough before momentum erases it. Decide what you will not sacrifice before ambition demands it. For if you do not set these boundaries consciously, they will be violated unconsciously. If you do not choose your price deliberately, it will be extracted without your consent, and the cost is often higher than any achievement can justify. I have known a man who gained a fortune but lost himself, who built an empire but destroyed his peace, who achieved every goal but forfeited his joy. And I have known others who rose just as high, who built just as much, who achieved just as greatly, yet remained whole, connected, alive. The difference was not in their talent or their drive, but in their relationship to success itself, not as something to grasp, but as something to express, not as a future state that would validate their worth, but as a present expression of their inherent value. This is the choice before you now, not whether you will succeed, for I have shown beyond doubt that any person with sufficient desire and persistence can rise, but how you will succeed and who you will be when you arrive. Will you be divided or integrated, connected or isolated, vital or depleted? The answer lies not in your goals, but in how you pursue them, not in your destination, but in how you walk the path. Success awaits you. Achievement calls your name. Possibility beckons. But the greatest possibility of all is not just to achieve success, but to achieve it in a way that makes success worth having. This is my most dangerous lesson, my most important truth, my final challenge to you. Now go. Not to chase success at any cost, but to create it from your wholeness. Not to pursue achievement at the expense of yourself, but to express it as the natural outcome of who you are. I tell you this plainly, we do not need more rich men with poor souls. We do not need more giants of industry who have become dwarfs of humanity. We do not need more success that illuminates the world while darkening the heart. The world does not need more hollow victories, more empty achievements, more success that costs too much. It needs more men and women who have found the higher path, who have discovered the deeper truth, who have mastered not just the science of success, but the art of living. This is success of the highest kind, not just fortune, but legacy, not just ambition, but soul. And it begins not with what you do, but with who you choose to be while doing it.